Kamala's audience squirms as she yaks about pachyderms. Our video of the day comes to us from the former VP who made her first major speech last night since Trump took office. And it was another classic ball of verbal vomit.
You ever hear someone speak and wonder if they're trying to confuse you on purpose? That's Kamala Harris in a nutshell. She took the mic, opened her mouth, and out came a hurricane of half-finished thoughts, feel-good filler, and motivational nonsense with no map in sight. It's like her speeches are generated by shaking up a magic 8-ball filled with buzzwords. And just as the crowd started mentally checking out, Greg Gutfeld swooped in, armed with pure sarcasm and a zero-tolerance policy for nonsense. He shredded her speech without blinking, calling it exactly what it was, a masterclass in saying absolutely nothing with maximum flair. Honestly, Kamala might be prepping for the word salad World Cup at this point, and spoiler alert, she's winning.
Here she is referencing a viral video of elephants. Watch.
Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? And as soon as they felt the earth shaking beneath their feet, they got in a circle and stood next to each other to protect the most vulnerable. Think about it. What a powerful metaphor.
Yeah. It's almost like they built a wall.
Kamala's speech was meant to be presidential, maybe even inspiring. Instead, it turned into verbal gymnastics with zero coordination. At one point, the audience stopped listening and started checking their Wi-Fi, thinking reality had started buffering. And right on cue, Greg Gutfeld tuned in like a guy who accidentally walked into a political parody and stayed just for the popcorn.
Report: Kamala Harris has created her own scented candle. And just like her, it gets lit every night. She's a drunk.
Kamala seems to have suddenly remembered that we actually have a border. Or she's announced she's going to the border. True, after 4 years of denying there's a border crisis, what's changed? Why the 180? Do you suppose it's the polls?
Greg didn't need a script or a teleprompter, just Kamala being Kamala. Her recycled buzzwords, hollow optimism, and vague spiritual fluff basically wrote the jokes for him. He watched that speech like it was a live comedy set, except the real punchline was that she expected anyone to take it seriously.
Kamala Harris will visit the southern border on Friday. She said she's looking forward to finally meeting Justin Trudeau. Speaking of Harris, at the last debate, she said she was a middle-class kid. However, it appears Harris enjoyed things most middle-class kids didn't, like living abroad, private school, at some of the wealthiest places on earth. The only thing she didn't enjoy was a nanny, unlike her husband.
This wasn't commentary, it was demolition. Gutfeld didn't critique, he went full chainsaw surgeon. Every pause Kamala made was a setup, every cliche a free punchline. Watching him react was like handing a roast master the easiest target on earth. Her metaphors felt like riddles stolen from motivational posters, and her pauses hit like awkward intermissions. Gutfeld's face alone told the story. Eyebrows in shock, smirks buffering like software updates. At times he looked less like a commentator and more like a guy trapped in a TED Talk written by a Pinterest quote. The real punch? It wasn't just the nonsense, it was how confident she was delivering it. Gutfeld saw the madness and said, "Challenge accepted."
Not to mention, Trump is the wall candidate, not Cackle's McKnee pads. Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute. All right, we're back.
While the media swooned over Kamala's inspiring speech, Greg Gutfeld stood there smirking like he'd just stumbled onto the blooper reel of a political comedy. Every time Kamala dropped another vague metaphor, bridges, dreams, the future, it felt like jazz hands without a script. Gutfeld reacted like someone reading from Lost in Translation, Political Edition, silently screaming, "Did she really just say that out loud? To everyone?" Then came the verbal smackdown. Greg didn't just roll his eyes, he built a trampoline out of sarcasm and bounced over every empty phrase she flung. While Kamala tossed inspirational confetti, Greg grabbed the vacuum of logic and cleaned up the mess with surgical precision. It was less a critique and more a roast session with a PhD in calling out nonsense. The crowd was left wondering if they'd witnessed a speech or a surreal improv show. And Greg, he just kept serving reality check after reality check, leaving no slogan unburned and no cliche unscathed.
You know, maybe they can circle around your husband, Doug, to protect vulnerable nannies. But Kamala brought that long-winded story in for a landing with this poignant lesson.
Because we know those who try to incite fear are most effective when they divide and conquer, when they separate the herd, when they try to make everyone think they are alone. But in the face of crisis, the lesson is don't scatter.
So powerful. But wouldn't it be more powerful with bongos?
Because we know those who try to incite fear are most effective.
Let's be real, it wasn't just the speech that needed roasting. Greg Gutfeld tore down the whole Kamala package like unwrapping a holiday present stuffed with nothing but socks and empty slogans. The chuckles, the head tilts, the desperate hand motions like she's molding air into policy. All fair game. At one point, Greg compared her public appearances to interpretive mime, just way more awkward and a lot more nervous laughter. This wasn't cruelty, it was precision roasting. A 5-star comedy meal served with style. Because honestly, you don't need to dislike Kamala to admit half the time your brain's stuck in buffering mode, spinning circles, rebooting, lagging hard. Greg just holds up a mirror to that chaos and says, "Nope, you're not losing it. That really happened." What makes it next level is how he spins the madness like a stand-up facing a room full of over-caffeinated thinkers. He doesn't just highlight the blunders, he crafts an entire show around them, painting a scene so vivid you can almost hear the teleprompter wheezing while Kamala tries to turn hope into a concrete plan.
It's hard to kind of figure out what she's saying. Why doesn't anybody ever ask a follow-up question? Like, what do you mean?
Well, that should have happened in the debate.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, it doesn't do interviews. You would not see her come onto the show, I can tell you right now.
We ask her now. Come on this show, Kamala. We'll have a box of wine.
She doesn't like going into the...
Greg Gutfeld didn't just roast Kamala's speech, he dissected the whole performance. From her awkward expressions to mismatched metaphors and choreographed enthusiasm, it was like watching a puzzle made of wet noodles. Anyone who sat through her interviews knows the feeling. Did you miss the point, or was there no point at all? Gutfeld turned that confusion into comedy therapy for a nation stuck buffering. Millions tuned in, not for debate, but to hear someone say it straight. Kamala's speeches are like assembling IKEA furniture without instructions, and Greg's the guy holding the Allen key saying, "You missed a piece." His takedown wasn't angry or political, it was sharp observational comedy with a twist. He broke down her pauses like a film critic and highlighted when her eyes begged the universe to help her finish a sentence.
Well, first I want to point out something Jessica said, that Trump began as a millionaire and now he's a billionaire. I think that makes him an expert in this. I would rather listen to somebody who began as a millionaire and is now a billionaire than somebody who doesn't have a damn clue about economics. I've never heard a candidate today more unsure of themselves on a topic than Kamala Harris. I think she's been burdened by the weight of expectations put on her by the media. I've never seen a better campaign ad for Trump. She's campaigning better for Trump than Trump is.
Greg didn't just watch the speech. He studied the audience like a detective spotting confusion in real time. Tilted heads, forced smiles, and frantic phone checking as if a fire alarm might rescue them. Then he turned his attention to Kamala's Twitter feed. A wild jungle of motivational cliches and Pinterest quotes that looked like AI gone rogue. Reading it aloud was like a lullaby for exhausted voters, while somewhere a PR intern had a meltdown. But Greg's roast went deeper. He painted the bigger picture of an administration so starved for energy they handed the mic to someone whose speaking style feels more like a contact sport than a speech. His sarcasm came not from hate, but from pure disbelief, like someone claiming the moon stands for justice and meaning every word. He didn't rant. He just blinked at the camera, letting the absurdity sink in. Of course, the pearl clutchers emerged, accusing Greg of disrespect, as if Kamala herself hadn't already redefined political discourse as a yoga instructor explaining Mercury in retrograde.
We'll go back to you, Vice President Harris. You flip-flopped on a lot of issues. How can voters be sure you won't keep doing that if you're elected?
Look, again, I come from a middle-class family, right? My values have never changed on that, right? I've talked about my grass being green for quite some time now. All right, and as a former, prosecutor and former state attorney general and, Willie Brown's ex, shout out to my brothers and sisters, right?
At last, someone finally said it. Listening to Kamala is like watching a TED Talk crash into a poetry slam. Her speeches feel less presidential and more like improv with flashcards. Greg Gutfeld turned that cringe into comedy gold, delivering a highlight reel of confusion with a smirk. Kamala isn't hard to parody. The parody writes itself. Greg just amplified what everyone's thinking. Sometimes leadership feels like juggling blindfolded in a wind tunnel. He stripped away the pretense and showed the awkward reality when style tries to cover up substance. And with a wink, he pointed out her signature quirks: the fake French accent, circular speeches, and eerie laughter. No exaggeration needed. The absurdity was already there.
About Joe, but what about Kamala? Well, just like the corpse, it's now okay to talk about how terrible the clown was too. Because before it would have been career suicide to spill the beans and commit an act of actual journalism. Ripping on Kamala now is about as risky as wearing leather chaps to a pride parade. Right, Dr. Drew?
Greg Gutfeld didn't make comedy. He just collected Kamala's best bloopers. His finale, a shrug and a raised eyebrow, like spotting political Bigfoot with bad lines. It wasn't just a roast, it was a support group for anyone thinking, did I just black out? Snarky, yes. Mean, number Greg's baffled, not hateful.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past, but the future.
That's some bad weed. Generally, when people get high, they actually have some interesting thoughts. Not her.
Like a guy served air at a fancy restaurant trying not to freak out. That's Kamala fumbling metaphors like a drunk magician. Greg Gutfeld, popcorn ready, shows us that a pantsuit doesn't mean sense. He didn't just roast her. He turned her own chaos into comedy gold. As long as Kamala keeps speaking, Greg's sarcasm stays fully charged because someone's gotta do it. Alright, subscribe to Jacob Reports for more sizzling updates.